Hi everyone, welcome back to Kingdom College. It's Celine and we'll be doing a selective preparation test today. So we'll be focusing on power reading test 25. So before we begin with the first extract titled Don't Imply I'm a Misogynist by Gordon Meggs, published on the Herald Sun, there are just some key words I'd like to just to teach you guys. So misogyny is the extreme dislike or hatred towards women, often supported with the belief that men are the superior sex and gender. I'd also like to let you guys know that sex is biological, gender is a social construct. So sex is male or female, and gender you can identify as a man, woman, non-binary, etc. So misogyny is this prejudice really towards women. Sexism, on the other hand, is prejudice or discrimination against a particular sex, often based on gender stereotypes. So contrary to misogyny, which focuses on the discrimination against women, sexism can also be the discrimination against men, or also women, also trans and non-binary peoples. So let's begin with the questions. So firstly, who is this letter to the editor targeted at? So I put down some paragraphs from the extract, about 3. So in the first paragraph, I'd also like to note that there's no focus on Tony Abbott, therefore the answer cannot be A, right? We're actually, Tony Abbott is mentioned once, right? And Tony Abbott is not even the focus, therefore it cannot be A. It cannot be C as well because they're using a couple of examples from from people who are in political positions, but they are not talking directly to them. D is in students. This letter is very broad, really. It actually seems as if this person, Gordon Meggs, is actually trying to redeem their image, like as a man. So really the answer should be B, people who stereotype men. This is mainly from the last 2 paragraphs that I've put up on the board. Some far too many men do terrible things to women, but that does not mean I will too. I refuse to be tarnished with the same brush. So that sentence, I think, is the first one that I just said. I think that's really what answers this question, because there is this stereotype or this misconception that every single man will harm a woman. By the way, if you ever do hear people saying that they hate men, those kind of phrases, I would like you guys to just be a bit aware that I think that's a hyperbole, because I don't think they actually do hate men. They just hate this idea of masculinity and what it has made men out to be, and how some men have fallen victim to that. Anyway, moving on to question 2. I didn't put a particular extract on the board because I think this is quite direct, and this is really emphasizing the entirety, the whole extract. So the solution here is A, as in social, because we're talking about the social relationships between men and women, and particularly the misogyny towards women, and the stereotyping of or men at times. So morale as in attitude is not the case in here. We're not talking about political statements because he has mentioned in the first paragraph he's not trying to talk about like politics. They have no political bias. And environmental is in regards to the physical environment, so think of nature, and we're talking about relationships, right? So social relationships, thus the answer is A. Question 3, once again, no extract here because they have used multiple times like the pronoun I. So in this case, because it is a direct, these are the direct words from Meggs, right? And by doing so, we do engage on a personal level with him, because these are his specific words. We're not getting it from the prime minister or some secondary source. It feels very personal. It feels as if we're actually talking to Meggs, or Meggs is actually talking to us. So that is why the answer would be A. Focusing on the second extract, the key word I would like you guys to be aware of is musically illiterate. So that means unable to enjoy or play music. Just think about what the word illiterate means, right? Illiterate means you cannot do something, right? So usually it's used in an English context or like a writing kind of context. So if someone says a particular person is illiterate, that means they can't read or write. And because we have musically in front of it, it's in regards to music. So let's go to question 4. So we have Tommy Teicher's mother was A, B, C, or D. So in this case, I've gotten my answer from this part of the extract, which is where Tommy talks about his mother. My mother was a celebrated soprano. Her name was Helen Tehel. She'd been a Budapest State Opera before her marriage, and as a baby, I was dragged along to her concerts, the opera and operetta stages. I was spoiled rotten before the from the word go, surrounded not necessarily by classical music, but good, high-quality music played well. So this, Tommy Teicher's mother was very indulgent in regards to access to music, because not only did Tommy have access or appreciate classical music, but it was classical music that was played incredibly well. And I'm not sure if you guys are very well versed in terms of like music, but in this case, the people, the players in this classical orchestra would have spent perhaps years in like a musical college or university, and there's very specific processes. It's very detailed, very strenuous. Anything that's creative is in order to master that skill, it's often it's really tested and really refined, especially if you do after high school kind of stuff, post high school endeavors. Sorry. Now for question 5, Tommy's childhood could be best described as A, sad, B, fortunate, C, lonely, or D, normal. So from the very first part of the extract, since I was born, I have been surrounded by music, not just by any music, but the right kind of music. So already we can get rid of A, sad, and because it doesn't sound as if there's something bad going on. It actually sounds as if Tommy's quite appreciative, and this is further reinforced by every single time he states that he admired the music, he really enjoyed listening to it, it was good music, played very well. Now the last part that I've put on the board, they, as in other people, hear orchestra music underscoring ads in films. They hear a trio and think of it as a band. To hear a full symphony or orchestra on stage and feel the power of the sound, it is like a tidal wave. It is an amazing experience, and it is one that I was lucky enough to grow up with. Now, this is what really points your answer to B. So C for lonely, it doesn't really sound as if Tommy Teicher is actually alone. Well, it does sound like he's a little bit alone. There's nothing that can prove that wrong, but he seems to be quite content with this solitude. So being content with solitude, like being happy by yourself, does not mean that you are lonely. D, this is not a normal childhood, I would say. Technically, no childhood is quote unquote normal. There's only average, but in this case, this is not really a normal childhood, because not many people have access to such sophisticated music. Like he said in the second paragraph I've put in, not many people got to hear orchestra music live and performed really well. They hear it in ads and films. They think of a trio and think it's a band. So that's what points your answer to B. He was very fortunate in terms of resources and money to be able to afford these luxuries and entertainment, but also because he was lucky enough, or at least he had a really great opportunity to appreciate music that was well played by professionals. So for question 6, from this extract, how would you predict Tommy Teicher's life turned out? So this is mainly just from the last sentence. Fortunately, I inherited far more of my mother's vitality and energy, a real show business personality. So In this case, it would be B, fulfilling. So this is because in this last sentence, Tomi Taicho actually says that inheriting his mother's skills, so having his mother's music literacy, so please remember the musically illiterate definition I put up before, was something that he actually really appreciates and is something that he really enjoys. And having this feeling of joy and happiness, contentment is fulfilling. It's satisfying, right? It's enough or adequate for you. So it's not miserable or excruciating because it's not sad or strenuous, or it doesn't sound as if Tommy's making it out to be sad or strenuous. C for sensibly. Well, firstly, sensibly is grammatically incorrect for this answer, but there's only a strong focus in terms of music. Sensibly would be in regards to responsibilities, and that actually hasn't really been mentioned. This is only got to do with his musical route. So it may be like a hobby, it may also just be like a career, and careers and hobbies tend to be quite fulfilling and joyful. Okay, so for questions 7 to 10, I don't have any keywords I think would be particularly important to know, but if you don't know the definition of a word, please look it up, add it to your vocabulary list. That will be really useful for you in terms of expanding your vocab and using it in your creative pieces or critical pieces, anything really. So for question 7, when the author was describing the girl teasing her, what tone was she using? So I actually grabbed the dialogue, the direct dialogue from the text. You shaved them? That's so gross. I can't believe you'd do that. Now, this is, like the key word here is gross, right? Like this person is shocked that the main character doesn't have much arm hair. So she actually seems disgusted, like she's grossed out by the fact that she doesn't have arm hair, which by the way is not a big deal. If you don't have a lot of arm hair, if you do have a lot of arm hair, body hair is normal, and if you don't have body hair, that's also okay. Yeah, so for question 8, why did the narrator not cross her arms? So basically her classmate or presumed classmate has just found out that she doesn't have much arm hair, right? So when she crosses her arm, she's actually exposing her almost hairless arms. So as seen in the extract that I've put on the board, I crossed my arms in defiance, but after realizing this would probably expose their hairlessness, and then they continue the extract. Sorry about that. So really, the reason for this is because it would expose the fact that she doesn't have that much hair on her arms, so the answer would be D. And she didn't want to expose these because her classmate was already making fun of her. For question 9, when describing her sports lesson, the author appeared, so I would say the answer here is B, displeased, because from the extract, she states that it had not been a very good sports lesson, so she's not feeling good about it, so we can kick out C, enthusiastic, because that's a good feeling. Once again, I was isolated in the 6th lane with a pair of flippers and a kickboard while my friends mastered tumble turns and learned to open their eyes underwater. I watched them through my blurry, steamed-up, oversized goggles and saw their hair floating around them with an ethereal quality that mine, tightly contained in a cap full of baby powder, simply could not achieve. Sorry. So the author, it's not that they feel upset, like a deep sadness. So we can kick out A because it actually seems as if they're just not happy with their circumstances. So I would also like you guys to understand that sadness and a lack of happiness is not the same thing, right? You can have a lack of happiness and feel neutral. You can feel content, you can feel fulfilled, but sadness is this grief, right? This negative emotion, right? And so here, she's not upset, as in she's not sad. She's just not happy with her circumstances. Yeah, so D just does not make sense in terms of like lacking. It seems as if there's not really much that's well, it seems as if her sports lesson is sufficient, like it reaches the goals. It's just that she's not happy with them. And for question 10, why did the author disagree with her mother? So this question, I think, could be like the answer can be taken from the entire extract actually. So the answer can be also be A, as in because she was not normal. She wasn't normal, quotation mark, normal because of the hairless arms incident, right? She doesn't grow that much hair compared to her classmates. B, she had to wear a cap. If you guys read the extract carefully, you'll notice that she wore baby powder underneath the cap so that it would slide off easily. So she didn't want to do that, because it's just not normal. It's not common, at least, even if it's convenient. She didn't want to be different. And C, because she was so different to her classmates. Now this part is true, because she was swimming whilst her classmates were doing gymnastics. Sorry. Yeah, gymnastics, opening their eyes underwater. She was swimming in like a pair of like flippers and kickboards. So she it's suggested that she's just learning how to swim. But her friends already know how to swim. They're probably doing like tumble turns, like gymnastics, or I think tumble turns like in the pool as well. Yeah. Now, because it can be either A to C, option D is all of the above, therefore the answer. So that's it for this test. So thank you for those of you that did finish this video. Just some key points I'd really suggest you guys go through is the definition. So as I've mentioned multiple times, keep a vocab list. Just add it on as you go. You can put that on like Google Docs, like a table, or just like on your notes app. I have mine on my my notes app on my phone, and I just put a word in. Even if I don't have the time to put the definition in at the time, as long as it's there and I know to define it later, I'll just keep that in mind. So that'll just really help with making your writing a bit more sophisticated, because you're widening your vocabulary, and eventually you're bound to find a word that is really specific, and it's probably the perfect word to describe a particular event or subject, right? Next, we have emotive language. Think about what emotions the composer wants you to feel. So some of these questions will ask you guys like, what is the tone? I know you guys might not feel like it's that engaging, but just kind of consider like, what does the writer actually want you to do? What does the writer want you to feel? Maybe they're trying to convince you as well, so you can consider that. And the way they do this is by having emotive language. They describe their feelings. Maybe they use items, so they utilize English techniques like symbolism. Yeah. And lastly, opinions. Now, I want you guys to be reading these texts and then just thinking to yourself like, oh, I liked that text, or I didn't like that text. It's perfectly fine for you guys to dislike the text. Everyone has their own taste, but it's a good thing to just be really critical. You're most likely going to read a text that you don't really enjoy and it's probably poorly written. And I just want you guys to keep that in mind. Like, form your own opinion. You are your own person, and when you're asked to analyze a particular text, that's when you can really go ham, and you can tell the question, like answer the question, say like, it was not a good text in communicating this particular theme, or it was sexist, or it was misogynistic, etc. Right? So just having that critical thinking by having those critical thinking skills by forming your own opinion is a really great skill to be developing. Yeah. So that's it for today. Hope you guys have a good week, and I'll see you guys next week for your following.